I don't even know where to orient this. Today's episode is brought to you by LOL. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm trying to find a good place to hide all that. But that's my life. That's all my work right there. It's all my stuff. Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sara. I'm your host. And in today's episode, we are talking about ways in which that you can banish negativity from your life. There is so much beauty that can come from clearing negativity, and often it is a fresh start for your personal growth. I know it was for me. There are so many ways in which I've allowed negativity to completely consume me up until I'd say probably 10 years ago. I've been an alcoholic for a good number of years in my life. I've, had terrible coping mechanisms for a good number of years of life. And you come to notice how often you not only rely on negativity to be the emotion that you exhibit, but you come to seek it because of different things happening in our brains, the wiring of dopamine and our reward systems, and also just the entanglement of habit and, especially the habits that we go to when we're in a frazzled place or, need to work through something. So I share this episode with great empathy for anyone that finds himself in the place right now where they are really looking to remove the negativity in their life, whether that's in themselves or in others. And we're going to kind of cover all of that. So we're going to start out by recognizing the negative thought patterns that we have within ourselves. There is a power of awareness that you can give yourself, and it is certainly only something that you can give yourself. You can't change when you aren't able to acknowledge what exactly is going on and what is causing you to have that negative outward output. Now, scientific evidence shows that awareness activates different parts of our brain regions. And when you become aware of something, your brain will work very diligently and very swiftly to bring you that. It's like when you notice, let's say your friend gets a new car and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know so many people had Broncos, because once you know her car is a Bronco, you're looking for her car for her. And then you just start to notice Broncos all the time. They've always been there. It was just that it was irrelevant to you before and you didn't retrieve it or send your brain on that like Labrador mission of going to look for the thing that you are currently interested or curious about, or are, in cases of survival, food, like looking for certain herbs or things that you're able to eat, like while we're existing much further back in time when all of this reticular activating system and this neural network got kind of put into our bodies and into the way in which we exist. And existing lives very deeply within habits, and habits lie very deeply in going in a positive or a negative direction, depending on your health and what amount of work you've done on yourself, because negativity escapes no one. Okay. Everyone you know has got a little bit of negativity that they could work on. I do feel it is going to be a never ending growth journey because there's always levels to negativity. There's always certain amounts of negativity you'll allow to creep in for a second. I'm in a place in my life right now where I do catch myself getting frustrated, and I'll give myself like a 4-second freak out, and then I'm like, all right, pull it together. Like, we know that's not helping with any things. So let's just move past this. It is something that you can kind of pull upon, and experts call it the 3-second pause technique. It's just to help you create a stimulus and a response safety net. Like, you don't want to be flying off the handle for no reason just because you're used to doing that when maybe this particular situation doesn't really warrant the full freak out. And over time, you'll start to catch yourself to the point of where you'll be like, woosah, it's not worth my time. It's not worth my energy. I can wrap my brain around this in a different way that's going to allow me to process in a different way. And then, like, let's go. Common negative thought patterns like catastrophizing, black or white thinking, or like we're cursed, or there's always a black cloud over my head. You need to identify what your personal favorite negativity pattern is. For me, it was always just like quick to frustration, like, again? something else. It was like I piled things on top of each other when they were all very separate, and I should have been able to process each one of them in the moment of them happening to not allow them to keep leveling up and leveling up to a place of where they had control over me and certainly control over my behavior and my habits. Finding the connection between the patterns and the past experiences does sound a little too easy to actually implement any kind of change in your life, but my goodness, it works, and it works quickly because your brain wants to play this game. Now, how do you go about catching yourself in the moment when negativity arises? For me, there were always physical cues found within my body. I could tell when negativity took hold. It was instantly like, no, I'm deeply annoyed to the point of where I'm going to be like a snippy little bee for absolutely no reason. And certainly the person that I'm about to unleash it on doesn't deserve it. And even if they might be instigating something, they certainly don't deserve the full treatment that I would give people or give myself. It was, my negativity was very non-discriminate. It would just unleash on whomever was there, except for animals. Never animals. Creating this like kind of personal map of where and when I was freaking out was helpful because then I just tried to implement the 3-second pause rule. And to be honest, I needed to implement like an 8-second pause rule. And it often bled into 10 or 20-second pause rule. And when I noticed that like, okay, I'm literally having to count to 25 and like smooth myself out to get over this, over time it's gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. Are there still times where I'm mad to 20? For effing sure. Where I'm negative to 20? For sure. But am I able to get away from that now? Yes. And I'm very thankful to have this kind of like definitely tool in my toolkit, but I'm proud that I've been able to make it a part of my mental habit. So, simple journaling techniques to help you track your negative thoughts might be a little bit more helpful if you still find yourself getting really triggered and not being able to anticipate it's happening, which could take a while. So, I wonder now if you are able to find moments where you can review your journal weekly and kind of sit down to spot what reoccurring themes there might have been within your day or your week that really took you to a place to where you found it difficult to remain in a neutral or positive space. Now, the second tip that we're going to focus on is creating a physical and digital space for yourself that does not induce negativity. A great way to go about doing that, which my husband is an absolute pro at and I am an absolute work in progress on, is the level of clutter in your environment and what mental state it does set up for you. There is a ton of research on how visual complexity is going to increase your cognitive load and surprise, extra cognitive load if you don't have the ability to control negativity or we'll say less favorable emotions. You're going to find yourself being absolutely fired the F up and very unable to calm down. Now, there is this concept of decision fatigue, which is certainly going to not only allow negativity to creep in, but it does kind of have a very inextricable tie to your relationship to the physical spaces around you. So if you find your home being cluttered, there's laundry everywhere, dirty dishes. Speaking about myself, there is absolute certainty that those things are bogging you down and they're just another task list on your list. And that cognitive overload is going to make you like start to feel really negative about what you've accomplished so far in your day because you do have so many of these things piling up and laying around that make them really difficult to avoid. Now, I will say for clutter, if you find yourself on the hoarder side of things, and I certainly was before I met my husband, the 1 in, 1 out rule for possessions is a beautiful one. And starting with a 15-minute decluttering session every season for each area of your home is a great way to start. Your kitchen, you never realize how many dishes, extra utensils, things that you don't need or want that accumulate. And then you find yourself doing 15 loads of dishes within one day because you had access to 47 spoons instead of just having access to maybe 5 or 6, and you just have to wash them if you need more spoons. You feel me? I thank my husband very much for that decluttering hack because I just felt like we were always doing dishes and I hated it. You also have the ability to question yourself a little bit more thoroughly before you bring something new into the home. Does it bring joy to your life? Is there purpose there? You can Kodo this. And even if you've seen the show before, it's been a while and it's so satisfying to watch. So you should. Digital detoxing strategies are big, and I think this is one that we don't really think about bogging us down until we realize we're bogged down. Notification management is a really great one for me. Setting screen time limits is huge for me. I also like to look at my screen time every day, and it helps me to realize how much of my day I checked out or how much of my day got stuck scrolling when I could have been using it a little bit more productively. Something that I've done, especially at the gym now, and it's a very new hack, but I enjoyed it deeply, was taking a book with me on the gym floor to read during rep cool downs, like while I'm waiting to do my next reps instead of scrolling on my phone. And I don't really like to listen to music when I'm working out. I like to just kind of focus on what I'm doing and have that be like a time for myself. So when I'm not doing the reps, I'm reading books and I'm getting chapters in, and it's beautiful because it's a really great time that I get to connect deeply with my body and then connect with my body reading physical words on paper. And that part of our brain doesn't really get used very much anymore. And it can really, you know, our reliance on our digital devices is getting kind of out of hand, and finding ways in which you can insert little contextual interruptions, like maybe a cookbook for your cooking instead of your iPad or your phone for dinner or breakfast when you're looking at a new recipe. Or there's just so many ways that you can go about implementing some more old school items and things and rituals into your day that are going to help you to digitally detox a little bit more and be a little less reliant on these texts and these apps. And again, creating those tech-free zones and those habits within your life are going to multiply over time. And over time, you're going to find yourself being more inclined to want to do those things rather than hang on your phone. Reading is a really good one. Another one is getting out for walks. Maybe you start by setting a walk or a step count goal. I know that I can exhaust myself pretty well too and have some great HRV results the next day if I am getting into the 20,000 K step range. And most of that walking then leads me to be very sleepy in bed, and I'm not even touching my phone. I'm oftentimes falling asleep before we watch the show we talked about watching that night. So give yourself these zones of no tech and watch your life change and watch your negativity begin to dissipate significantly. We are absolutely so triggered by the things that we see on our phones and our tech devices. And negativity lies within the repeatable habits that we allow ourselves. And if you're seeing a lot of things on social media apps that we don't really have control over, there really is beauty in just removing yourself from them entirely. And if you need permission to do that, I'm giving it to you. You're missing nothing. Sorry for the matcha break. Next, we want to design spaces within our life that are going to promote calm and positive energy. Maybe that's you putting out a little seat in the garden, making sure there are flowers around you you're going to be able to look at, and give yourself 15 minutes in the morning instead of that scroll. Or maybe you want to leave a book in the bathroom. You could do that. Maybe you'd like to have, Alexa set up through your house to play your favorite podcasts and not playing them on your phone. So you're not relying on your phone to get to the next podcast, which then could lead you to looking at Instagram. And then there you go down a 45-minute rabbit hole. You want to incorporate elements that are going to engage all of your senses. So let's think about smells. Let's think about textures and touching. Let's think about warmth. What things can you replace that are going to light up the physical parts of your brain and the physical senses and touches that we have that are so opposite of tech and tech life? Tapping into our body and creating these spaces and these places where we can begin to feel all of our senses, you do really have the ability then to walk yourself out of negativity by engaging in the joyous activities of these senses and within the spaces that you've created within your home or your life that allow you to tap into them regularly. Our third tip is evaluating our relationships. Are there any signs of toxic or draining relationships in your life? And I would imagine you know pretty immediately if there are. So if you find yourself in that space, it's time to do an energy audit. In what ways do you sense yourself changing and the way you feel before and after you're with them, and even during? What does that look and feel like for you? And how far off of the spectrum is that from your normal day-to-day life? If you find these people taking you into steps of negativity or anxiety, that's a really subtle sign that your body is giving you that you should not be around this person, that may not be a good fit for you. Identifying these subtle forms of negativity like chronic complaining or one-upmanship, the one-uppers, man, they really upset me. And I gotta say, there comes a moment where you're able to do enough growth within yourself to where you're able to look at these other people and just quite simply be like, man, I'm so sorry. I know you're doing that for a reason. And I'm so sorry for whatever happened to you that put you in a place where like, this is who you are now, but you don't have to stay this way. Like, there are options out there for you to change. And I know a lot of people like that. And to be honest, I make a lot of the content that I do that I hope, because I hope they'll watch one day and it'll help them. And it'll be something that they can hear to get them out of the space where I used to be, like we all have our thing, like we all have our cross to bear. And there's a lot to be said about removing negativity from your life in the form of people that are keeping you there. Maybe you feel great until there are those people around you, and then you feel the remnants of them throughout the day. And you're really quite certain that you don't like being around them, but you don't know what to do about it. So we want to start by setting healthy boundaries and doing so without guilt, because setting boundaries and giving yourself guilt or feelings of upset is just as bad as the negativity for yourself. So how do we go about doing this? Start with specific phrases to use when establishing new boundaries. You want them to be able to distinguish that you are serious. You want them to also to be able to understand that there is a line between their wishes and your wishes, their life and your life. You also need to get really good at being able to decipher the difference between compromise as a group or compromise of self. Are you compromising who you are? Are you minimizing who you are so that they will be less negative, less whatever it is that's making you feel unsafe, to minimize and shrink yourself? Or is there a compromise amongst everyone where we're all a little uncomfortable, but we're going to work through this together? Big key. You also want to nurture connections that inspire and support you. I went through a phase of moving, and throughout that phase, I lost a lot of the friends I had and where I used to live. And in returning home to where I grew up, so many of my friend groups were either gone or completely like changed. We don't have much in common. And not to say that like I couldn't be friends with them, but there's seasons for people and times and places and things. And I found myself in a new season of wanting to call in new friendships, new people that inspired me, that were supportive of my dreams, had dreams of their own that they were looking for support for. And it really did bring to mind to me what an active versus a passive friendship is and what that looks like. And throughout most of my life, I was engaging in pretty passive friendships where I was doing a lot of the heavy lifting and not receiving much in return in terms of love, support, friendship. So that led me to really become very mindful of the way in which I connect with others. And if I feel there's a disconnect in what I'm receiving back, I peel back, take it on back. And I'm like, it's cool. You don't need a bestie. You're not looking for that connection. We can be acquaintances. I love it. It also gives you the ability to create rituals of connection with those that you understand are truly looking for a connection like you are. And that creates really fun friends. Really fun friends that are going to give you the ability to feel inspired and aspire to want to do bigger things for yourself, which is one of my favorite parts about friendship. Now, how do we go about having difficult conversations when necessary? Because there are always going to be instances of people that just don't understand why you don't want to gossip anymore, or why you aren't negative anymore, or what makes you think you're so good, or it must be nice. I like to take the sandwich method. I like to utilize appreciation first. See, I can understand how difficult it is to see me changing and feeling our relationship shifting. And I want to request that maybe we have a conversation about ways in which we can move our relationship into a different phase together. And I would appreciate it if, this is something you don't think you're capable of, or you don't really want to do it, that, you honor and respect my growth and know that I wish the very best for you. And you don't have to follow me. Not even follow me, but you don't have to change who you are because I'm changing who I am. These conversations are difficult, but they're really cool for you because when you set them, you've not only set a precedent for your standards, but you feel very confident in being able to stand up for yourself when need be in the moments where you are feeling like other people are pushing their negativity or themselves via projection onto you. And setting the right conditions for important conversations is always going to be a major key, but you just want to make sure whenever you are delivering information that can feel uncomfortable, that you're doing so from a place of de-escalated truth. Truth is amazing. My dad always say the truth hurts, whether you got to say it or hear it. And for me, I had to learn over many, 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 many years of delivering truth in a very aggressive manner, that there's a way to go about doing it. And you got to do it when you're chill. And you got to do it when you're healed a little bit, when you've dealt with what it is that you feel was the scenario or the situation, and then delivering the truth, whether it be to yourself or to someone else. Now, in removing negativity from your life, you are going to find this space where you're like, well, how do I behave instead? So that is where we start to develop a positivity practice. And for me, it started with gratitude. And there's so much science on the impact of gratitude, not only on yourself, your brain, your habits, but in the true helpful banishment of negativity from your life and your patterns. There are neurochemical changes that are associated with gratitude practices as well as prayer practices. Gratitude truly rewires the neural pathways that we have over time. I have so many episodes about this. I really encourage you to go back and listen through them, because this is one of my favorite topics, because it's done so much for me, truly. And there is so many ways in which we can incorporate gratitude. But for me, I started with a 5-minute morning routine to just set a positive tone in my life. I would open my eyeballs. I would say thank you for another day of waking up. I would look over at my husband. I would say thank you for this person in my life being alive again another day with me. And then I would just be so happy from there, because that's two of the most important things to me. And my day was great. It was off to a great start. I'm breathing. He's breathing. We're all right. The power of intention setting upon waking is also really important. So once I've established that we're both alive, I then decide what my day is going to mean for me. I like to try to get up as quickly as possible and get some movement in, but to be honest, it's happening an hour or so after I'm getting up these days by walking my dog. And while walking, I am having my time with God. That's my prayer time. I will give myself those 45 minutes and really just get it all out there for the day. Get it all out there. Ask questions. On my next dog walk, I'm asking more questions. So for me, I'm setting up the intention of having this ritual of just working through in live time what I'm going through that day with myself and with God out in nature, my happy place. Use affirmations that actually work. And as far as affirmations go, my favorite one is thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm eternally grateful to everything and everyone, namely God, my husband, my family, myself. And the gratitude of thank you is the biggest affirmation I could ever say, outside of just connecting with your creator, who you feel comfortable talking to. There are psychological, we'll say, impacts that come from not only affirmation, but for prayer or spiritual time. So don't discount something as frivolous or having little impact because it doesn't feel as though it's actually doing anything. But I can promise you it is. And it's doing so much work here and here. And these are two of the main places that we are looking to rehab, in essence, when we are trying to remove negativity from our life. It does, quite frankly, send a shock through the system that does really start to get your brain looking for happier routes than more negative routes. Now, how do we go about creating personally meaningful statements that feel authentic? For me, it was the thank you. For you, it may be something totally different. So just allow whatever comes to top of mind to go out first, and you'll know whether or not you like it and you want to keep it around. You may not. You may want to keep it moving. It'll be up to you. How do we reframe negative situations as opportunities for growth? I can tell you, the moment that I felt frustration coming up and I implemented the 3-second rule, I then immediately knew that after that, I needed to find the silver lining or figure out what the lesson was within this space. What is the opportunity for a lesson within this thing that has happened that I am absolutely annoyed by? That's where the growth lies. And that's where rewiring your brain in the physical context comes into play, because things that happen on the fly like that trigger you, you really do need to stop in your tracks, take the 3-second rule, think about what you can do next to make this be less of an issue for you emotionally. And then you've gone ahead and rewired a part of your brain throughout that entire process. It really is so miraculous. It's such a really cool hack to have for self-growth. It was difficult in the beginning, I'll say, but I also enjoyed the idea of, like, every time that I do find the lesson within the growth, I was like, my future self was just thanking me. Like, man, wow, I'm only here because of you doing that. Like, the fact that, like, I don't even have anxiety stomach right now when XYZ happens, when before I'd have to throw up, is like, whoa, big deal. Also, finding the opportunity in every challenge really just leads you to be a more confident person in your skills and what you're capable of. Once you have emotional confidence, you believe in your ability to emotionally handle situations. Woo! That is a level up in life, my friend. You are absolutely going to crack the code, and whatever it is you want to do in life, you will achieve, and you will achieve with joy and peace. And just be a really great example for others about how they can go about doing the same. Now, I will say the final tip is one that for me is a little difficult because when I find myself in negativity, the action portion of things was slow to come. But we need to take action despite things feeling imperfect, despite our mood or our emotion not being what it needs to be. We do not need to wait for perfect conditions because waiting for perfect and procrastination can keep you stuck in negativity. And that is what we don't want. The concept of productive discomfort and its role in your growth is very similar to finding the lesson in the opportunity, the silver lining in the sadness. We just always want to be constructively looking for ways to get a little bit more adept and resilient at dealing with the things that present themselves in front of us at all different points of our life. Now, there are a few ways in which you can go about building momentum for the daily growth. And one way to do that is the 2-minute rule for overcoming resistance. You can allow yourself 2 minutes to flippity flop back and forth about that laundry, but then you got to pick up that laundry and you got to get to getting. Same thing with like procrastinating to go grocery shopping. You can fiddle faddle around the house for a few more minutes and do this and that, but ultimately you're just pushing dinner later and later. Get your butt out the house and go to the grocery store. So I would give myself especially because I have like ADHD off the chain some days, I give myself 2 minutes. And in those 2 minutes, I'm doing whatever little thing that my brain thinks it needs to do. And then I get to getting. There's also the ability for you to kind of design and develop success triggers. In the same way that you can be triggered for that frustration, you can also set yourself up for success triggers. And that is through that repetition of building confidence in yourself, doing the things you say you're going to do, being able to work through a difficult task, taking a challenge like creative challenges and turning it around on its head and finding a new way to go about it. Embracing your mistakes as valuable feedback is not failure. It is also another level up within being able to navigate and circumvent negativity in places that don't really require it. The growth versus the fixed mindset is also something big to think about. We know those people that are like, well, this is just how I am. And you're like, what? You're okay being like this? Not just for right now, but forever? You're going to be this way forever? No. We can overcome almost any challenge, like truly, and I believe almost any challenge can be overcome, especially if it's involving our emotions, because we are in charge of our emotions. We can have drives, we can have addictions, we can have compulsions, we can have anger, rage, we can have all these things, but we can control them slowly but surely over time, 1% a day, 1% a day. Now, you can go about taking yourself out of a fixed mindset approach by asking questions after something happens or doesn't go as planned and you fly off the handle. Why am I so upset? Why did I feel it necessary to smack the counter? It's kind of crazy. Why do I feel the need to XYZ instead of ABC? You've been there. We've all been there. Asking questions can help to de escalate the situation and get you into problem solving mode. And not only problem solving mode, but within this problem solving framework, we are rewiring because we're asking, we're reversing, like, why did I just do that? Literally, why did I just do that? That was so dumb. I don't like that. I don't want to do that again. Let me not do that. So, the compound effect as well of these consistent, persistent changes over time is going to really lead to true overall growth in ways that are not only going to be measurable within yourself, but to others. Now, we want to give ourselves all the grace in the world throughout this process because it's a process. It took me years, absolutely years, to remove complete negativity. And I often find it creeping back in when I'm tired, I'm burnt out, I'm not feeling well. I didn't get enough rest. I didn't eat enough that day. Like, take care of yourself and be mindful of when you feel negativity creeping in and then start to asking questions. Why is this? Was it because I'm burnt out and I've been doing too much and helping too many people and not helping myself enough? okay, let me act accordingly because of that now. We have so much control, and we've just been taught that we don't. And the understanding that you receive and the confidence that you build in allowing yourself to get 1% better a day over time is going to be the biggest life changer you could ever imagine. I hope that this episode just sparks you to want to try some of these things a little bit. We all deserve peace and happiness and joy. And I, for one, am so proud of you for listening to this episode and taking a look at some of the harder parts of ourselves. My Richies, I hope you have an amazing week ahead. And as always, make life rich.